People of Reddit, what's the worst thing that's happened on your job? Serious. Attention. Serious. Tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. I used to work in low-volt integration, wiring smart homes, being the lead pre-wire technician. I was in charge of all pre-wire installations unless a more experienced tech was on scene. Being just 23-24 at the time of employment, I was the one to usually go into crawl spaces and attics since most of the older guys didn't want to do it. Over a year and a half working there, I've been bitten by 2 brown recluse spiders and 1 black widow spider. I still have a scar of one of the brown recluse spiders who bit me on my side. Luckily it was just my side that got bit and I am a healthy young adult, otherwise I could have lost something. The brown recluse has no antivenom in the entire United States. Colleague was absent from work for a couple days and wasn't answering their phone, so manager and I went to their home. The building manager gave us a key to their apartment, totally illegal of them, I know, and we opened it to find the colleague dead. Already at the door, I could smell something sickly sweet and I knew in my heart they were dead. We had to wait for the ambulance service to come declare them dead. Turns out they were sick for days and didn't contact a doctor or anyone else, just slowly wasted away at home. I will never forget that first look into the apartment. Sorry for your loss. We had a situation like that at our cabinet company. One of our better detailed carpenters just stopped showing up one day, so the head of his department and another buddy of his went by his house and found him sitting in his chair, all crumpled over. He'd had a stroke and had been sitting there ever since. He was still alive when they found him and he survived, but not without massive brain trauma. But a guy have a massive heart attack between 2 furnaces in remote department. It cooked him. His skin split like a hot dog on the grill. It was terrible. Also had a guy that had an air pocket in a molten pot. When the air pocket reached the surface it blew out and rained molten metal him. We had to chase him down to get him in the safety shower. Same place had a guy commit suicide in the parking lot because his wife was cheating with someone on her shift. I spent 3 months doing an internship at a mining company. A guy fell from a 30-meter ridge and died on the spot. Rumor has it that he actually jumped, because he fell headfirst, and people said that if you're not looking to at it all, you always fall feet first, or at least instinctively use your arms to break the fall, for all the good it will do ya. But nope. Eyewitnesses said that they saw him crashing down with his head. I never saw the scene or the aftermath, but apparently it wasn't pretty. The company gave 2 weeks paid leave to those who witnessed it. I also got another one, though on a much more light-hearted note. I used to be a math tutor for HS kids back when I was in uni, and I was teaching this 15-year-old kid, Chris, who had a 20-year-old sister who still lived at home. I was going over a geometry problem with him one day, when his father started screaming in the living room, calling for the daughter to come out. They had an epic fight, with him calling her every name in the book, while Chris and I were cowering in his room trying to figure out what was happening. Turns out his sister had cheated on her ex-boyfriend and he found out a few months after the breakup. Instead of being the bigger man, her ex decided to mail them all the nudes he had amassed during their time together, along with a note telling her that he find out about the cheating. Air traffic control. Didn't happen to me, but I was working that day and heard the replay. Couple takes off in bad weather and get more ice on their wings than they can handle. They dropped like a rock and screamed on frequency the whole way down. The worst part is the other planes may or may not have heard it, and you have to keep talking to other planes like nothing happened until someone relieves you. I was a controller in the military. Worst I had was working in radar and had a Cessna coming in on final, not me doing final. Everything was normal and then silence. They went below safe limits and were called off. Never heard anything. Got a call from tower about an explosion at the mountain near approach. It was our plane. We lost 4 service members from coal down to an E3 in an accident that shouldn't have happened. As a sort of therapy, they took us up in an identical plane and showed us all of the safety nets that plane had to keep from crashing like that. I also had a small Israeli jet come in hot as hell on final during a light rain. My maintained slowest speeds due to rain didn't seem to mean anything and they went sliding off the end of the runway. What made it worse was instead of just waiting to be pulled out, he decided to use his jets to turn and try and get out himself, ripping his fuel lines out and grounding the plane. Luckily nothing catastrophic happened, but I did get the nickname Dragon Slayer as their CS was Dragon 11. Years ago, someone gave a clearance by flight service to an aircraft at a satellite airport. Weather was terrible, sucked in everywhere in my airspace. Aircraft takes off, gains altitude, starts to descend back towards the field. Assume they forgot something. They briefly pop back up, then descend again and drop off radar. The pilot must have got disoriented and crashed. 2/3 people died. Sometimes it's worth waiting for the weather to improve. First job, minor league baseball. We had someone fall out of a luxury suite on the 2nd level. He broke his neck, a few other bones, and had to be airlifted out. On impact he also managed to injure 2 other people. Second job, different minor league team. Had a catcher get a career-ending concussion trying to stop a batter from attacking his pitcher with the bat after a few inside pitches. Current job, had the sales manager convince half the company that he was actually the owner and nearly drive the company out of business trying to take control of it. I worked at a nursing home years ago and we had a patient with dementia who was a lot of work, constantly trying to get up, screaming, throwing things, spitting, hitting. We'd rotate staff as a 1-to-1 to keep him safe. Well, one shift his sitter got tired of the constant yelling and moving and medicated him from her own stash. Gave him her personal supply of Ativan and Excicodone to knock him out. It did work. But she was immediately escorted out of the building and lost her CNA license. I was a lifeguard and one evening I'm on the closing shift with my manager. Pool is all but empty as we're 10 minutes to close and it's dark around 8:50 p.m. I head inside the pool house to clean up for about 20 minutes until I hear shouting out by the pool. I briskly walk, not run, out to the pool deck to find my manager yelling at a single guy to get out of the pool. Except the man is yelling back that he can't. Because it feels too good, my manager yells at me, 17-year-old female at the time, to get back and call the cops. The individual had pleasuring himself in front of the jet in the pool before I even started my closing duties and my boss had been trying to talk him down. Finally we told him the cops were on the way and he jumped out, hopped the fence, and ran away. This was a nice, family neighborhood and he was immediately banned. The first middle school I worked at, a student of mine grabbed a girl during and sexually assaulted her while she begged him to stop. Later when interviewed by police, his exact words, to the fucking police, were, "She knows she wanted it. She was always flirting with me, so she deserved what she got." The girl was just super sweet and nice to everyone. The boy was always an absolute jackass. He had a 12% average in my class, and was always causing issues. We had 3 people die on one job site, 1 fall and 2 confined space deaths. Edit, this was in 2008 in Idaho. We were working hazmat at an acid plant turnaround. The confined space deaths were from asphyxiation. One went in a tank to see how dirty it was and he collapsed. The other guy he was with went in to rescue him. He also went down. They were not permitted to enter the tank yet. The fall was from the top of the platform where the safety rails had been removed. He took a 70-foot header. It's a sound you never forget. There's so many rules about confined spaces where I work. It always seems so harmless, but it's very dangerous if you think about it. Just a little edit since I didn't expect this to explode as it did. Whether it's an inspection or something that needs fixing in a confined space, we need entry permits, oxygen monitors, continuous forced air circulation, 1-2 people as intervention if anything goes wrong, safety harness and ropes to pull someone out if anything does go wrong, all for a seemingly harmless space. I'm a nanny. The first child I was ever a nanny for was molested on a family vacation by her aunt and uncle. It was heartbreaking. They let me know pretty much as soon as they got back. I informed them that I definitely wasn't qualified to deal with it. I was only 18 and really had no idea how to deal with it. I stayed though. They told me I was one of 3 people in her life that she completely trusted and both they and her really needed me. I'm a jazz classical pianist. One time, while playing at a pretty high-end cocktail bar, I noticed an older man collapse at his table out of the corner in my eye. He was sitting alone, and either very few people noticed, or no one cared. Either way, nobody made a scene. I ended up speaking into the mic. Do we have a doctor on the floor? One woman came up thinking something was wrong with me, and I pointed her to the other section where the man was sitting. At this point staff was gathering around. Later found out he had a heart attack, and was okay. Crazy to me that he was in a crowded venue and no other patrons cared enough, paid enough attention to get him some help. Edit, thanks for the awards guys. Haha, this really blew up. My brother and I owned a restaurant together for 7 years. One night the lady came up to pay her bill. My brother was helping her while I was standing next to him making small talk as we did with all our regulars. Out of the blue she says she is so sorry, and then before she could cover her mouth fully projectile vomited through her fingers into my brother's mouth and on his face. I let out a Jesus fucking Christ and ran to the hills while my brother was screaming a bunch of oh no, no no's. He ran into the kitchen and started pouring soap into his mouth. He still gags if I bring up that story. Teacher here. One day during lunch duty a 4-year-old raises her hand. She said that the boy next to her said that he was going to go to her house, kill her mom, and bury her in the yard while the girl watches. Me, knowing immediately I need to report this but trying to console the girl, I said that would upset me too if someone said that, but sometimes people say things they don't mean to hurt us. I'm cut off by the boy in question. I did mean it. I'm going to kill her mom. Of course, when I reported it, it was brushed off. Kid was a known behavior problem, actually led a teacher to quit, and our disciplinary action was don't pay attention to him and when he's good reward him. I couldn't even hug the girl to make her feel better. Edit. Wow, that's a lot of comments lol. Like I said in my post, this kid was a known behavior problem child. His original teacher snapped and quit 2 months after school started because she was tired of getting beat up, bit, spat on, etc. This is also not the norm at my school. I have made it clear to my admin that if a student ever threatens me, hits me, or hurts me, and if that child remains at that school, that I'm done. I love teaching and I love kids, but that would be too much. The kid's voice still haunts me to this day. Barista here. There was this one old woman who would come in several times per week. She'd stay for hours at a time and never bought anything, just a glass of water and a place to sit. This woman was at least 90 and was clearly losing her memory and seemed fairly confused at all times. So I felt bad for her and let her stay. The first few times she'd just drink her water and leave. But then she started using the restroom. Now I can only assume this woman used diapers, and perhaps didn't quite remember when it was time for a fresh one, because every time she'd use our bathroom, there'd be poop, not in the toilet, on the walls, floor, door, trash can, sink, exterior of the toilet, any combination of these. She'd obviously tried at least a little to clean it up, but her poop persisted. We started calling her Poop Granny in secret. I have spent hours of my actual life cleaning this woman's poop off various surfaces, so many hours that my manager banned her. However, because she had memory issues, I had to tell her not to come back at least 5 times. I have a work poop story with a happier, weirdly adorable ending for you. I was working at a gymnastics facility, when a lady came up to the front desk to tell me a little girl was in the bathroom and had an accident. Accidents were fairly common, lots of excited little kids who aren't always great about asking to leave class if they have to go. So I grab our bin of loner leotards, thinking no problem, We'll find something that fits, bagged the wet one, and she'll be back in class in a minute. I knocked and opened the door to discover this wasn't P. There stood a tiny 5-year-old girl, with her leotard and shorts pulled down to her ankles, covered in crap from the waist down. It was also all over the toilet, the floor, and her hands, as well as an enormous pile still in her shorts. I remember wondering how that much poo could have come out of such a small person. She says, somewhat frantically, "Sorry, I had a tummy ache." "Yeah, kiddo, I bet." I managed to put on a cheerful smile and tell her it's no problem, we'll get her cleaned up and pick out something new to wear. Not an easy task with just a sink and paper towels. Halfway through, she starts to tear up, and asks if that ever happened to anyone else before. I lie and tell her of course it has, and that's why we have extra clothes. After that, she was smiling too. Told the same lie to Mom when she picked her up. "Oh, it's really no big deal. Accidents happen." Mom didn't exactly smile, but I think if I had said it was a unique incident, we never would have seen them again. She was always super nice to me, so I didn't want her to feel bad. Next week's class, her mom brings her up to the desk. They want to return the clothes, washed and folded, yeah, and say thanks. The girl hands me an envelope containing a thank you card. Inside the card, she's done a sketch depicting the incident. A short stick person scribbled all over with a ton of brown crayon, next to a tall stick person holding a purple blob, like the leotard she borrowed, both with big smiles, and taped to the card a chocolate lollipop. It is hands down the best thing I have ever been handed at any job ever. So weird, so cute, so accurate. It was the one and only poop incident in the several years I worked there. Still have that card in a box somewhere, lol. One of my managers was having an affair with one of her subordinates. They got caught making out while at work by another associate, who reported them to HR. The manager convinced HR that she caught the associate stealing, and they made the story up to cover for themselves. HR sided with the manager and they fired the reporting associate on the spot, despite having no proof. 2 months later, she got caught again with a different subordinate and reported, but HR refused to take action because it would mean admitting they fired the first employee wrongfully. Instead, they promoted her to an unfilled position in a different department. I left shortly after all that, but a friend tells me she still works there, got promoted again, and just got married to the fiancé she cheated on twice. Corporate HR are wolves dressed as sheep. Never think otherwise. I worked a job a few years ago for a company that sold to a new ownership on Pite Deli and never told anyone it was happening beforehand. So one day these cars with a bunch of guys in suits roll up, walk in and announce that everyone in upper management is fired, and here are the replacements. Everyone else is now required to do a job interview and see if they keep their job. Also, they are going to drug tests at the end of the day for everyone they decide to keep. Absolute panic in every way. Upper management is packing their offices and calling souls crying. Middle management is running around trying to figure out what is going on, keep things functioning, and prepare for job interviews. Meanwhile, about 4 employees are very focused on the words drug test, one of which goes and hides in a shed on property with a 5-gallon jug of water from the water machine in the office and proceeds to drink the entire thing. He then vomited and went into a seizure during his interview from desalinating his body. Another guy went home for lunch and came back with his infant's pee in a bag taped to his thigh. The best part, though, was the drug testing itself. I think only one person legitimately failed theirs. It was for weed. He didn't seem to care honestly. But about 10 to 12 people were flagged as the failing for all sorts of crazy things from weed to amphetamine to heroin, etc. I think one came back as PCP positive. Turns out it was a combination of shitty tests and prescriptions they took from their doctors. They told me I failed mine and it had to be sent to a lab for authentication. Then I was told the cup arrived at the lab empty because the lid wasn't tight enough and I had to take it again. This took 2 weeks before I was allowed to return to work without pay. I stayed like 3 more months and bounced. The new management was terrible and lazy, blamed everything on the original employees and would say shit like, if you all were so good at your jobs, why did we have to buy the company? All the time. This was 2008 and the market was in shambles from the housing collapse. Our original owner was a wealthy guy who had a dream project he wanted to create, but he couldn't sustain the losses forever and eventually sold. The new company didn't see his dream, they just saw a bottom line profit they could squeeze out in a down economy. It was sad for so many reasons.